The Newsround on Off the Ball.
With Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
This is News Talk.
Now you're very welcome along. So Tuesday's Off the Ball is coming at you. There were emotional scenes. If you were watching Cheltenham, you will know provided a fairy tale finish for Honeysuckle. Rachel Blackmore aboard. It also, day one, that is, underlined the brilliance of Constitution Hill. John Duggan reports this hour. Brian O'Driscoll is with us after 8 o'clock talking all things Six Nations. Plus, it's a Champions League evening. Dan McDonnell will be along for the football show. Man City hosting Leipzig 1-0 from the first leg in Germany. 53106, the text number. We're at Off the Ball on Twitter. Richie McCormack, hello to you.
Giddy up, Joe.
Indeed, Michael McCarthy, good evening.
Hello, folks. How are you?
I'm great. So much to discuss. I mean, somewhere right now, there's a press officer running around Carton House after Mac Hanson saying, no, training. We need to do some media training. And I, for one, hope Mac Hanson is never caught. He should be faster than the press officer, so he'll get away with it, I would think. So I hope
he's not. It's not how he's wasting his energy this week, but go on.
He'll be trotting, press officer sprinting.
Right, just a little jog.
Yeah. So ominously, when asked about the Irish-English rivalry, he said, I don't know if I should say too much.
Yeah.
But then he took a deep breath and off he went.
I'll say it anyway.
So, look, none of this is too serious, but it's just wonderfully unusual, I suppose, given the general climate when it comes to players doing interviews ahead of crunch games. He said, there's a fair bit of hatred, isn't there? He said, it's good, though, because once the game's done, they're good lads like everyone else. Then he gets into the history part.
Uh-oh.
How do you think Mac Hanson addressed the historical, contentious relationship between Ireland and England? He referred to it as, that shit happened how long ago? But it does add a bit of fire to the game. And then he was asked, I growing up in Australia, have you been aware of the Irish-English rivalry? And he said, I think everybody hates England in general, so it's something I was aware of for sure. One of the English headlines went with Mac Hanson, everybody hates England.
Yeah.
And then he was asked about, Owen Farrell, Andy, it's so interesting. And in fact, he cracked a joke. He said, there'll be no moves run at Owen if he's playing. There'll be a lot of chat about lightly tapping him to the ground. I think it's great. And it's not meant in a bad way in the slightest, but it's a departure from what we're used to.
Yeah, and I think it will be taken as that, won't it? I think people hear Mac Hanson talk once, and James Lowe is someone that's probably in a similar category, and they sort of take them for the types of characters they are. Whereas I think if it was someone, if James Ryan had come on with you last week and said, what I'm really looking forward to is England because I particularly hate them, and then went on to answer it about history in the way he did about Ireland's call, I think maybe the headlines would be slightly different, but that's not going to happen. Whereas with someone like Mac Hanson, you just want those people to be as themselves and fun, and we have... the moment on TV when he got man of the match in the last game where he knocked the mic and the cursing and so on, it was just that was just so brilliantly human and happy, and the more we can get out of these guys, the better. I hope the press officer isn't sprinting around the camp after him at the moment.
Apparently, Andy Farrell jumped in and said, this is going to bring on more adversity. It's a great thing.
Bring it on, baby. Yeah.
When Mac Hanson has 3 man of the matches in 8 games, he can say what he bloody well likes. Yeah.
God, that's unreal.
I think
what an impact he's had.
Extraordinary. I still feel his amazing try in Paris last year remains somehow underrated from the kickoff.
Yeah.
Remember, he ran a full sprint and it just landed perfectly and kept going.
Yeah. It was a unique try, wasn't it, at the time? I remember thinking I'd never seen that before.
Or since.
Yeah.
Or since.
Got us back into the game and then ended up with a game we could have won. But other than, before that, I can't say that Mac Hanson was massively on my radar. To think of that impact in just 12 months.
It was a no one's radar.
That he's had is unbelievable.
He went into camp and suddenly Andy Farrell, as Andy Farrell tends to do with certain players, Gibson Park included, seems to see things fairly quickly and decide on a player and says, yes, you're actually going straight in, which is what happened with Hanson, and he's been vindicated massively. I think it also underlines this talk pre-game that, 10 years ago there's a fear that anything you say could somehow affect what's going to happen on the pitch. Whereas now, and especially when this team are this good, I think there's an understanding that words and talk are 99.9% irrelevant. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if he comes out and says we're going to pump England by 20, I think.
Yeah. Different sports people you talk to will have different views on that, I think. I think there is still a cohort of people that think that little bit of anger, that little bit of extra motivation, can actually make a difference on the day. And it can, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago on a slight tangent, I think. But I think in this case, Ireland's level of confidence, and so much so that they can have that kind of interview where he is so relaxed he can make jokes about it, I think is taken very differently than an arrogant, we're going to win the match, we believe we're better than England, and that's, it's a very different type of vibe. And I think what England will see in that is, oh shit, Ireland are so up for this, so relaxed. There's no extra motivation that can be taken from that kind of. It's a, do you understand what I mean? It's a very, very different type of confidence / even arrogance in a way. It's not the kind of one that you get super angry with. It's the one that you almost get disheartened by.
Yeah, it is funny though. That shit happened how long ago now? I think Paul Rouse is probably going, hang on, I went in and gave you guys a lecture on this.
It wasn't that long ago. Everybody hates England. What a headline.
Yeah. I mean, I assumed Ireland hated England because everyone does.
Yeah. Now that he's, fully fledged Irish, not that, always qualified and so on, but I'm glad he didn't say the Poms, I have to say.
Uh-huh.
Like he's an Irish guy now,
He sure is. So we should get moving. Alan in Dublin. I'm so tired of the another great day for the Irish at Cheltenham narrative.
Oh, me too.
Oh, because Alan finished his text by saying, I feel like I'm alone in this.
No, I said this today. So we were watching the Arkle, and Willie Mullins and Paul Townend won the Arkle, and it's the second race today, and Shane and the office goes, 2 out of 2 for the Irish. And I go, we have to stop with this for the Irish thing. We're the bad guys.
Yeah.
And we have to, it's like this, not that like any particular person is the bad guys, but in this, we are the New York Yankees, for want of a better word.
Dion Fanning called us the Man City of horse racing at the weekend.
Yeah, there you go.
Does anybody celebrate it from that aspect, though? Does anybody go turn away from Cheltenham after Friday and go, yes, we got 18 winners?
Yeah,
Britain only got 5 or whatever.
If we haven't, I think it's a very. If we don't anymore, it's a very recent thing, because it used to be a really big deal that like the Irish are getting winners, but it was a spread of trainers, and it was various different things, where now as we're talking about 3 trainers and the odd story here and there in the way that there used to be, that I think is still celebrated.
Yeah.
Whereas it's hard, and it's not to be not even proud of what people like Willie Mullins and Henry de Bromhead have achieved. That is still there. But it is also just hard to get excited about the fact that they have all these resources now, and all these owners are going to those yards rather than Nicky Henderson or Paul Nicholls or something to say, oh, look at this, aren't we beating mighty England? It's not like that anymore.
It's gone from we had 2-3 winners in the festival and let's really lean into those stories and celebrate them, to, oh, the Prestbury Cup is hotly contested. This is interesting. Yeah. Oh, we're after winning one. To now, the Prestbury Cup is a total formality. It's just a case of how many Ireland will win by. And even it was emblematic of the whole situation. The first race, the ITV commentator is commentating away, and it's a win for Ireland. And he goes, it's a 1-2-3 for Ireland. Yeah. And he goes, actually, now that I'm looking here, the first 8 horses home are Irish.
Now, we always did do well in the Supreme Novices, but yeah, that's a little bit extreme.
We had a good chance, didn't we?
Yeah, I think so.
So I don't know how
you still look for stories like I think the day for the Irish thing. I agree with the texter. I still think you look for stories like Flooring Porter and even just like these smaller trainers like Mouse Morris back in the day and all that. That's still brilliant. But I feel like it's almost the nationality part of it should be lost, and it's almost like we should be going for the small trainer to make the breakthrough over the titans such as Mullins and Nicky Henderson, you know what I mean, and take nationality out of it.
I know, but you still have to keep track for the Prestbury Cup. So
the Prestbury Cup's very important, yeah, and the cool graphic that they have with the 2 flags, that they put on the
yeah, no, but genuinely, you can't just retire the Prestbury Cup because it's not going well. They have to.
Well, it would look pretty bad from a British point of view if they decided there was no more Prestbury Cup.
Cancelled.
Yeah, because they can't win it anymore.
Yeah. So John's with us, John Duggan at Cheltenham. He's been speaking to Rachel Blackmore, speaking to Henry de Bromhead, and we'll play those interviews after 7:30. It's where you're starting, Richie, in the Newsround, which is brought to you with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night edition is available now. So give us the general synopsis of the day.
Yeah, there was a fairy tale ending to the career of Honeysuckle at the Cheltenham Festival this afternoon. The Rachel Blackmore Mount won the Mares Hurdle for trainer Henry de Bromhead, coming home a length and a half ahead of Love Envoy. It was Honeysuckle's fourth consecutive Grade 1 victory at the festival and brought some pretty emotional scenes. And afterwards, in the parade ring, earlier in the afternoon, odds-on favourite Constitution Hill won the day's feature at the Champion Hurdle. The Nico de Boinville Mount, trained by Nicky Henderson, romped home ahead of 7-2 shot State Man. 66-1 outsider Zanahir was third for trainer Gordon Elliott. Elliott had to wait until the penultimate race of the day to back his first winner. 18-1 shot Jazzy Matty took the Boodles Juvenile Handicap Hurdle under jockey, pardon me, I'm just after losing my place there because I'm after scrolling down too fast. But yeah, Gordon Elliott waiting until the penultimate race of the day to pick up his first win. That came under Michael O'Sullivan. That was the Cork jockey's second winner of the day after he caused an upset aboard 92 shot Marine Nacional in the opening race of the festival, the Supreme Novices. Willie Mullins claimed a fifth Arkle in 9 years with favourite El Fabiolo, a comfortable winner. Mullins also trained odds-on favourite Gaillard de Mesnil to victory in the final race of the afternoon, the Amateur Jockeys Novices Chase.
As Richie says, it was emotional when Honeysuckle won, returned to the parade ring. Incredible ovation, a hug of intensity and meaning between Henry de Bromhead and Rachel Blackmore for obvious reasons. And, you know, it's just so to the fore. It was to the fore of Rachel Blackmore's mind, even, when first interviewed on ITV aboard Honeysuckle by Mark Chapman. No, that's his name? Yeah. Yeah. And, straight away her thoughts are with the de Bromhead family and what they're going through. And you see it in the de Bromheads, that awful thing of joyous moments are also some of the saddest moments.
Of course, tainted forever, but also continuing on, and it's hard to even understand. And it's funny, even the Honeysuckle story in itself would have all that is still I think what's beautiful about Cheltenham is that you develop these relationships with horses over years, really, and they come back and there is that Cheltenham legend, one last. But it's so much added meaning today. It's almost irrelevant considering the context in this situation.
It is. Rich mentioned Michael O'Sullivan as well, the jockey who won the first race, Marine Nationale, and Jazzy Matty 18-1 for Gordon Elliott in the Boodles Hurdle as well. He's someone to look out for. Interesting story. Was still in college last year doing his degree in agricultural science. Got the 2 rides for Cheltenham today. Won both races, and they're saying this guy's serious stuff.
Yeah.
So another Irish jockey maybe to look out for.
Absolutely, yeah. Great story.
John Duggan going to join us 7:30 and we'll chat through the afternoon. Champions League then. Sorry, Mick, you were coming in.
No, I wasn't. I was just going to say, on the texter's point earlier about and it's I don't mean to be painting Ireland as the bad guys, but I suppose it's just a level of where we are as a nation, right? Do you know where I'm more comfortable? Do you remember the year 100 years ago when the Grand National didn't go off properly? They wrecked the start a couple of times. They abandoned it. Because they got the tape wrong.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were on the bomb threat for a minute there.
No, it was close to that though. It was either the year before or a couple of years after or whatever. Yeah. But it was the second time a Grand National hadn't been run off, and they got the start wrong. They didn't call it back in time. Some horses ran the race, some didn't. So there was no Grand National. And there was a guy on the BBC being interviewed by Des Lynam, who's an Irishman. And he was talking about the system that they have in Ireland over the system they have in the UK, and made a statement which was and if in a backward country like Ireland they can get it right, then why can't we? And there was uproar. That is where I kind of feel I'm more comfortable being angry at the British for thinking that we're kind of potato eating leprechauns than actually being better than them at something.
Leave that to SNL, Mick.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the Americans that are like that now.
They're still doing it.
The British are far too aware of what we're actually like.
But it is an interesting state of affairs. This is just a moment in time, and there are a lot of problems in this country. But you look at the wealth which has come in the last 20, 30 years, and you look at where they are across the Irish Sea as the Tories really ramp up the last 12 years into what's going to be a glorious finale. So we sit here on the Tuesday, and the Prestbury Cup is obsolete. And Ireland, it's a question of how much they hammer England by to win the Grand Slam. World number 1 team in the world. We're not doing too badly on a whole host of fronts.
No.
Kind of insane.
Yeah.
This is not the childhood that we had.
No, absolutely not. Beating England, in the rugby was one of those once in a lifetime things where if it happened, it was hey! And then it was right, we'll see you next year, 38-0.
Yeah. I love Hanson like one of her own, but God, I really do love the bluntness of Aussie sports people, says Sarah in Galway. And it's just a lazy cliche to hate England. This is John from Limerick.
I think he's only joking. You hate Tommy Tiernan once said it. You know, you don't hate England. You just want to see them lose in sport and war.
I think.
Joke. Tommy Tiernan line, it wasn't.
Yeah. It's gone through some of the wars. I'm glad they won some of them, but I take the point. Champions League.
Yeah, a couple of places up for grabs in the quarterfinals tonight. Manchester City and RB Leipzig resuming level at a goal apiece for the second leg of their last 16 tie at the Etihad. Taking you through the teams there, Manchester City have Ederson in goal, a back four of John Stones at right back, Manuel Akanji and Ruben Dias are the centre-half partnership. Nathan Ake is at the left-hand side of their defence. Rodri anchors the midfield. In front of him are the quartet of Ilkay Gundogan, Kevin De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva and Jack Grealish. Erling Haaland, as expected, leads the line. A few changes for Leipzig. Both fullbacks have been changed and a couple of alterations in midfield too. Janis Blaswijk continues in goal. They've got a back four of Benjamin Henrichs, Willy Orban, Joško Gvardiol and David Raum. In midfield, it's Kevin Campbell, Konrad Leimer and Amadou Haidara. Dominic Szoboszlai, Emil Forsberg are in support of Timo Werner. Elsewhere tonight, Inter have taken a 1-0 lead with them to Portugal for their second leg with Porto. And both of tonight's games kick off at 8 p.m.
Liverpool at the Burnabout tomorrow, so the pre-match press conference is happening as we speak.
It is, yeah, just seeing quotes from Fabinho and Jurgen Klopp rolling in saying if it's a 1% chance they'd like to go for it. They are, of course, 5-2 down from the first leg against Real Madrid tomorrow night, and Real Madrid boss Carlo Ancelotti said today that Karim Benzema is 100% fit for tomorrow night's last 16 second leg with Liverpool. The French striker sat out their weekend win over Espanyol with an ankle injury. Benzema may be fit, but Real will be without David Alaba. That is due to the thigh injury he sustained in the first leg at Anfield.
So Klopp and Fabinho talking at 1%. What chance in percentage terms do you give Liverpool of making the next round of the Champions League?
Logically, 0. But
you can't say
what
0.
has been happening with this competition?
Mathematically, you can't say 0.
Well, okay, 0.1 then.
Okay,
percent, right?
good.
Okay, but that's logically.
Yeah.
But what's that in real life? Logic doesn't play into the knockout stages of the Champions League. Like how many? We've seen it too many times where a team has been 4-0 down or 3-0 down, or it's happened far too often over the space of like just 10 years. It's happened, I would say, 8 times.
But you're not saying more than 5%.
Well, like, I don't think it's going to happen. If you want to, but what I mean is, there's a part of me that is a complete neutral in this game. It doesn't care who's going to win. There's a part of me that thinks that we've got everything set up for one of those Champions League nights. One of those miracle nights that live on in the memory forever, like the Liverpool-Barcelona game, like the Ajax-Spurs, etc. So that's great that we're in that situation. The chances are it's going to be like a 1-1 draw or something like that, and we have absolutely no drama whatsoever. But the fact is we can hope.
John and Arklow says Mick sounds like he has Stockholm Syndrome for the British. Is that what you sound like?
What does that even mean?
I don't know.
That I've been kidnapped by the British and now I've started to like them.
You miss their sporting dominance over us, maybe?
Yeah, like I don't really, I suppose. I just, there's a part of me in terms of my comfort level at Irish dominance is low, but it's because of the inbuilt inferiority complex that comes with being Irish.
It's a more natural environment to be an underdog than it is to be lording it over and literally anybody else. Doesn't matter if it's England or Australia or New Zealand.
I think what Cheltenham has maybe given us an insight into is how, say, take soccer, how the Germanys of the world feel for 80 to 90% of their sporting existence. As in, we're going to win the qualification group for the Euros. We're going to get through our group stage at the Euros. And we'll probably get through the quarter-final stages. And then it gets interesting.
Yeah.
So now we're sitting here at Cheltenham Tuesday, the Presbury Cup. It's like, well, here we are.
Do you lose joy in it, though, after in the way that we have lost joy in
every Irish match under Stephen Kenny now will be, the build-up and the tension and
disappointment.
We could do it, we probably won't, we might do it. And all of that.
Yeah.
Whereas Germany are just like,
Yeah, we're we don't play any games, basically, between tournaments.
So we're getting a glimpse of that. Germany are not, we're going to win the Presbury Cup in football.
By halfway through Tuesday.
Kind of. So it's a glimpse maybe of what it's like to be superior sporting nation. It's not as interesting as it sounds. We should almost be grateful for being average at a lot of sports.
Yeah. I don't know, I'm willing to give it a go.
Hanson may be the first rugby player in the last 10 years to give an interesting interview, says Anonymous. I think that's very harsh, actually.
Yeah, I agree.
I think some super interesting interviews given by rugby players over the last number of months. Even take Sunday Times at the weekend, and he gave a similar interview to us. Andrew Porter, on the day of a match. On the day of a match, Andrew Porter, across 2 pages of the Sunday Times, is talking about losing his mother, Wendy, and remembers the funeral happening the day before he was due to start secondary school, and just the unresolved trauma and grief. And he developed a very serious eating disorder and lost all kinds of weight he shouldn't have been losing, and turned it around and started going to the gym at 6 a.m. He talked about being a Ben Dunn gym and then going to the gym afterwards and turning it all around. And now here he is, and he's doing it for his mother. Now, that's not dull.
And it's a piece that you get to know somebody a little bit more from. And as you said, it appears on Match Day. It's exactly what we're hearing from GA journalists from the last 15 years, that they don't exist anymore, and they're the features we used to read on Match Days in the Sunday papers, but they're gone. I would say that rugby, certainly of all the sports, doesn't have a big problem in the way the texters.
No, they've good Match Day interviews in the papers. Obviously, look, the post-match interviews are generally poor, unless it's James Lowe or Mac Hanson or Sexton's very good.
There's always going to be people who just give you the bland and the work-ons and the tech talk and stuff. It's because they're not comfortable giving themselves, but sure, that's always going to be the case with some people. What I find in rugby is that they're not sort of encouraged not to give anything or not to say anything in the way that perhaps we've been critical of GEA a lot in the past, in particular of don't say anything to anyone for fear that it'll be used against you. And I feel that rugby doesn't have that, at least to a massive degree, and therefore you'll get the odd good interview.
Beating England and being better than them at horse racing and rugby, which are Tory sports, is particularly sweet. That's fair.
Yeah, and we've give them a good game of cricket as well every now and then.
Simon Cooper on the Tories generally is worth listening to from last night.
Absolutely,
So interesting. And we'll get to Richie's next story in a second. One text catching my eye, because this struck me watching the Cheltenham coverage today as well. So Kieran and Sligo, what is it about racing people that encourages talking about horses like they're people? This horse loves it here. Does he really? Now that line I don't mind. What they mean by this horse loves it here is they tend
runs
to
well
on this track. But there was a moment where was it Constitution Hill was walking the parade? Anyway, they were talking about his kind eyes. And I
like it.
I thought,
no,
that's
don't be cynical about these things.
His kind eyes.
Well, I'm not saying he actually has kind eyes, but I'm saying that it comes from a real place when people talk about these things. Whether it's nonsense or not, it's another matter, I suppose.
I've never even said of a human they have kind eyes.
Dark eyes.
Yeah. He won by 5 lengths, and he looks like a great lad as well.
Yeah.
He seems like a sound horse.
I remember interviewing Ruby Walsh before, and he did liken horses to kind of 5, 6, 7-year-old people in terms of their playfulness, and I get that.
Yeah.
But
are you a pet man?
Who was it on Sky News? The newsreader on Sky News when some
it was Kate Burley said it was after the Paris attacks.
She took a picture of a dog. The sadness in the dog's eyes.
It was after the Paris attacks. That was infamous.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. So 2030 World Cup, Richie.
Yeah, we should actually mention some breaking hurling news this evening. Seamus Callanan is going to be in a race against time to be fit for the start of the Munster Hurling Championship. The tip forward has been ruled out for between 6 to 8 weeks, according to Shane Brophy, with a medial knee ligament injury sustained in their game against Waterford. It's not a massive blow for Tip, who've had a horrible run of injuries so far this season. And as you mentioned there, Joe, Morocco is set to join Spain and Portugal's joint bid to host the 2030 World Cup. UEFA has given the green light for the Iberian nations to link up with Morocco in an effort to thwart a bid that involves Saudi Arabia. Ukraine would also be part of that bid, albeit in a very limited capacity should the war with Russia have ended by then. Saudi Arabia is to buddy up with Egypt and Greece and is offering to cover infrastructure costs for its partners. Meanwhile, the 2026 World Cup will be the longest ever, and obviously 2030 will too, with 104 matches. FIFA is abandoning plans to have 16 groups of 3, with the 48 qualifiers to be split into 12 groups of 4. 32 teams will go through to a new second round phase, and it will go on for a million years.
The last 32?
What?
Yeah.
So you qualify out of the groups to get to where you would be now if you qualified for the World Cup?
Essentially, was it 2/3 of the third place sides in the group phase will go through, along with the first and second? So, yay, Jeopardy.
So 12 groups of 4 and 32 teams make the second round.
How could that not be? How is that not like as obvious to them as it is to us that it's ruining the World Cup?
Oh, but they're not thinking in those terms. They're calculating how much money they make from 104 matches as opposed to 80 matches.
104 matches
Sure,
times
but-
multiple more territories who will be involved, and they can charge over the odds for the sponsors.
Okay.
You know, it's like you
Long
can
term
see.
thinking, though, you want the competition to be, the world to be waiting for it and to look forward to it, and maybe we'll all just get over it.
And the thing is, the knockout stages will still be brilliant eventually. So in a way, it's okay.
But you can feel,
the
you
group
can
stages were
see
brilliant
it
in December,
groaning. You can see it groaning under the weight of all of this, though. Now at this stage,
bit.
it's like it's like 30. There was 64. Is it 64 games in the 32 World Cup? I might have got my maths wrong there.
I think so.
But like mid 60s, and then like to add another 30. Was it 30 or 40 games onto that? 40 games more.
Yeah.
Like it's like it. Whatever about the specialness we were talking about, it perhaps being drawn in terms of every 2 years. Like to have so many matches, you'll forget more than half of them after a World Cup.
It's the studio pundits on the D team that I feel sorry for. They're going to have a lot more Morocco's versus Japan's.
Don't be dissing Morocco, man.
I'm not dissing anyone. I'm just saying there's
World
a lot
Cup
more.
semi-finals,
Don't know all that many of their players.
I was at the Ireland-Germany match in 2002, says this texter, World Cup match. And after the game, drinking in Tokyo with a few Germans, I asked them why there were so few Germans at that game. They turned to me and said they'll come for the semi-final and final. And you'll be at home.
No need for that. Everything about it was accurate, but
The last bit was unnecessary.
And yeah,
I didn't think they'd get to the
confidence.
final in 2002. They were terrible, but they did.
They were a brutal Germany side.
Yeah.
Absolutely brutal. Carsten
Carsten
Ramelow
Janker.
was like Carsten Janker, Carsten Ramelow, just all the Carstens, and they were just mucked. Oliver Neuville. This is an underwhelming group of German players.
Still made the final.
Yeah. Closest.
We could have two if we could count, Mick.
Scored about 4 goals against Saudi Arabia, I seem to remember, in the group stages.
Yeah, he got 5, I think. Did he?
Maybe.
Yeah.
We are pretty much done. Brian O'Driscoll is with us between 8 and 9. We'll be right across the football in the Champions League 9 and 10. Next up, we are talking to John Duggan about day one at Cheltenham.